Welcome, everybody, to the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show, episode number 2. I'm Adam the Bull. He's Zach Meisel, back home after a rough trip to Oakland. Was it tough being in that stadium? Did it feel like it was going to fall apart there, Zach? How are you, man? Happy to be home?
A red-eye flight doesn't exactly spark happiness or enthusiasm, but yeah, I mean, didn't see a single possum. I think I only had water drip on my head once from the ceiling. So all in all, a successful trip.
All right, a lot to get to today. We look back at the first series. It was a great start for the Guardians, 3-1. We'll look ahead to the rest of the road trip. The second of 3 legs begins in Seattle against a much better team, or at least a team we think will be much better in the Mariners than the A's. And we'll talk about the manager, both the good and the bad. But, Zach, why don't you give us your first thought of the day about what you thought of this past weekend?
Yeah, and I think the overwhelming takeaway is just how storybook it was that you have this new manager after 11 years of Terry Francona, and the first series of his managerial career takes place in Oakland, where he became a folk hero, where he became a legend, where he was the everyman, the regular guy with a cool job, as he liked to describe it, and had fans chanting his name. And I think it was cool to see it, at least the first 3 days, go better than he could have ever envisioned. And so tough to see what the fans went through, and I think we can dive into more of that later. But just for Stephen Vogt himself, he was bombarded with Oakland reporters and fans and friendly faces in the stands that he knew. And I think, at least for the first 3 days, I mean, it went according to his dream script.
Yeah, no doubt about it. My first thought, my first takeaway is the offense, right? The offense really exploded. They had, and obviously you want to take it with a grain of salt because Oakland's a pretty bad team. But still, you're looking for positives to start the season, and we assume going into the season, rightly so, that the Guardians are going to struggle to score. And at least for 4 games, they struggled a little yesterday, but overall, the 4 games in Oakland, they did not struggle to score, and they got a lot of big hits from a lot of players that you're going to need to have good seasons. And really, it wasn't almost everybody had a pretty good weekend offensively. So why don't we take it from there? Let's continue with that Zach, because the offense was great. And how do you balance, with baseball, you do this thing where you're like, it's only a few games, and obviously 4 games doesn't tell you anything about a season, but you still have to feel excited, at least on some level, that the bat, if they had scored 8 runs in Oakland, we'd be like, oh my God, we already thought the offense was going to stink. They couldn't even score in Oakland. So at least it went the opposite way, and the bats were great this weekend.
We can only analyze what we saw, right?
That's right.
If they would have gone 0-4 in Oakland, I think we'd all be feeling quite differently, and fairly would be critiquing them like crazy. So we don't want to make sweeping declarations and say they're going to win 100 games, or say that anything we thought going into the season is drastically different now because they won 3 of 4 against the A's. But there are some encouraging signs, right?
Absolutely.
I think you look up and down the lineup. I think part of maybe what makes this difficult to analyze is the fact that it's important to Stephen Vogt that everyone got in there. Everyone played quite a bit. I think you're going to see that in Seattle too. And it makes it so that it seems like because they were hitting, everybody's off to a good start, pretty much. So it's better than the contrary. I still, eventually you want consistency in your lineup. You want, even if it's not all 9 guys in there every day, you want reliable entities. And it's, in a weird way, I think he's going to have to mix and match to figure out who deserves that opportunity, if that makes sense. So, you see Rocchio the first 3, you see Tyler Freeman the first 3, but you did see Gabe Arias, you did see Florial, you saw Brennan and Laureano, and you saw both catchers. So I'm just curious to see how this shakes out. How long does it take Stephen Vogt to figure out who he trusts? And do they get to a point by May 1st where you're seeing more of a consistent lineup? Like that's That's what I'm curious, because I do wonder if it's hard for guys to get in a rhythm if everybody is playing. So you're playing every other day, and
Right.
you're not going to be facing Oakland's pitching all the time. Seattle has one of, if not the best starting rotation in baseball. Is it going to be easy to just pop up off the bench and have 3 hits? I don't know.
It's funny. As great as the hitting was this weekend, they still only hit 2 home runs. We knew the power would be down. They're on pace for 81 home runs this season with 2.
That wind was brutal, I will say.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding. It's only 4 games, but the home run, but they got a ton of hits. Obviously, mostly singles and doubles. I think they had 37 singles or doubles in this series. And yeah, I think seeing some of the young guys, because the young guys almost across the board all kind of stunk last year. Like 2 years ago, there were so many young guys that contributed in a positive way. And then it just felt like, for the most part, it all went backwards last year. And so even though we have to see a lot more, and yes, I want to see what they do against these good pitchers in Seattle, and you're going to face Luis Castillo and Kirby, I think, in 2 of the 3 games. And even this Emerson Hancock, who's going tonight, is a talented pitcher. We'll get to that later. But it's good to see those guys, because when the young guys hit, they play with a lot of enthusiasm. They're aggressive on the bases. We saw that hurt the Guardians in the top of the 9th yesterday. We'll get to that a little later. But yeah, when you say Rocchio, I got it wrong. When you see Rocchio get that shortstop job and then he gets off to a good start, or Tyler Freeman going to play a lot of center field and he gets off to a good start, that makes you excited, because those guys are not out of left field. They're guys who had some prospect credibility to them. So I think that gets fans excited.
You want these guys to take these jobs, these opportunities, and run with it. You don't want to be sitting here on Memorial Day wondering, all right, do we give Rocchio 1 more week and then we see who we have in AAA? Do we try to move Freeman somewhere? I mean, it's the dream scenario is what you started the season with. Those guys all work, and then it's up to other people to sort of force the issue. So yeah, it's the 2022 formula worked. I think we all knew it. You couldn't just run it back the same exact way. That's why they added Bell and Zunino, hoping they'd add power, and that was a complete failure. But there's a way, or they hope that there's a way, to take what they were in 2022, which is be aggressive, slap the ball all over the place, and run like heck, and just be a little bit more aggressive than that. And you saw it, like the Stephen Kwan, his home run on Saturday, that's the farthest he's ever hit a baseball.
Yeah, it was a bomb.
So that's kind of what you're looking for, where he was in an advantageous count, saw the exact pitch in the exact zone he was hoping for, and crushed it. So can you do that so that it's not stringing together 5 singles to score 2 runs? Maybe it's more doubles, maybe. So I don't, like, again, we can't draw conclusions after 4 games, but you did see more of that. Like, guys it wasn't a ton of bloops. It was guys were hitting the ball hard, and I think it was encouraging overall.
Absolutely, because there were plenty of doubles in it. Yes, it wasn't a bunch of bunt singles and a nubber that just rolled into left field. You're right. I loved Kwan's. It was good to see, because Kwan talked about, trying to be a little more aggressive and hitting the ball harder, and he did it there. And, one thing that the Guardians have done, you talk about being aggressive on the bases, they're tied for the league lead with 8 stolen bases already. And what's interesting is they have 8 stolen bases from 8 different players. Nobody has more than 1. You got 1 from Kwan, 1 from Jimenez, 1 from Freeman, 1 from Laureano, 1 from Brennan, 1 from Arias, 1 from Fry, and 1 from Florial. Josh Naylor tried to steal 1. That probably was not – he's the one guy that probably should not be running. But we know this. This is how the team's going to win. They got to get a lot of singles, doubles, and they got to be aggressive on the bases, whether it's taking the extra base on a base into the outfield, being aggressive if the ball's loose from the catcher, and stealing bases, because they have a lot of good athletes that can run. A lot of these young guys are good athletes.
Yeah, there were 2 instances. I mean, Florial hesitated around second on his triple, and he's lucky instant replay exists. Otherwise, he would have been thrown out. I think Laureano hesitated on 1, maybe around second base too. But you see the default setting for all of these guys is take the extra base, just keep going. And that is how they played in 2022. And remember, then you had the rule changes. Like, that's supposed to help a team like the Guardians. We all thought they were going to benefit last season and it would help the offense, and they didn't take advantage at all. So maybe that mindset is reinforced. Maybe I think the new coaching staff in general is just more aggressive in how they think. So I think you're going to see a similar style, but maybe more like hair on fire and trying to hit the ball hard. And we'll see if it works. It's that was the thing. Remember when we were analyzing that Yankees playoff series 2 years ago, and we were saying, can this work? They're facing a team that Stanton and Judge, and those guys can just flick one into the outfield seats, and it's 3-0. That's what happened. And for the Guardians, it was, can you string together 4 hits against Garrett Cole? Like, that sounds impossible. It's hard. Is there a happy medium that they can find?
Well, that's what they got to do, right? You can't be last in home runs and, last in extra base hits and be in the mix. But you don't have to be first, but yes, find that happy medium. Can you get to 17th? Can you get to 18th or even 20th? And that gives you an opportunity to at least get some easy runs, even if it's not as many easy runs as some other teams. By the way, Tigers off to a good start. They started 3-0 on their first series, and the Yankees, who you mentioned, they went 4. They sweeping the Astros. That was a impressive start to their season. But let's talk about the pitching, because Shane Bieber obviously looked phenomenal in the opener on Thursday, and then the starting pitching after that was just Logan Allen was fine. I thought for what you could have expected from Carrasco, he actually did an okay job. The worst starter of the weekend was Bibee. I mean, he was lucky to only give up the runs he did. He did not look sharp. But overall, pitching fine. And again, if Carrasco gives you the start he gave you yesterday, the Guardians would sign for that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and I think in those games, I mean, Bibee did not look good. I thought they were going to lose that day. And then, how many times have we seen them face a lefty like J.P. Sears and not touch him, right?
Many.
Same thing with Alex Wood, and that didn't seem to be a problem either day.
Yeah.
But we thought that, and this still may be the case. Again, everything we say today comes with the disclaimer that it's 4 games against a bottom 2 team in baseball. But the fact that those guys didn't have their best stuff, Bibee just didn't have command whatsoever, and it didn't matter. I mean, he gave up a big inning, and the next day you blink and the Guardians put a bunch of runs on the board. So that didn't even seem like a possibility last year. Think about every time they won, it was by 1 run.
Right.
I mean, they were playing nothing but close games, even against Oakland. Think back, rewind. Yeah. Last year they went Seattle, Oakland to start. And in Oakland, they needed extra innings to win 1 game. They blew a game late. So they were scratching and clawing against that team a year ago too. So it's baseball. I think if you can win and have some breathing room and not have to lean on the end of the last couple relievers too much in your bullpen, that's a healthy way to play. So we'll see if they can keep doing it. You don't want to be. I think they played 59 1-run games last year. That's taxing.
Crazy. Speaking of which, Emmanuel Clase, who pitched in probably all of those 59, or not all of them, but almost all of them. He looked a little vulnerable the other day in his first appearance, gave up a couple of hits, tying run to the plate. I don't think he had any strikeouts, if I remember, but he got out of the jam there and got the job done. And then Scott Barlow, who's supposed to be for a second when Scott Barlow was on the mound, and I know he doesn't throw from the same direction. For a second, I was like, is that Mike Clevenger? Is Mike Clevenger on the mound?
They look so similar from the side.
Right? I mean, it's so bizarre. But he struggled there when he came back out for the 9th inning, and then he, like Eli Morgan, I don't know what happened. He just comes in, 4 straight balls, game over. That was the last couple innings of that game, like took baseball back 50 years. It was ugly from both teams.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Oakland's players. Some of the errors, like you see that in Little League, coach pitch.
Yeah.
the base running mistakes. It's going to be interesting. We one of the storylines to monitor for the first few months is just noticing, picking up on things that maybe we're so conditioned to how Terry Francona would have operated since
Sure.
we watched him for 11 years. And how does Vogt do things differently? And I think choosing which relievers in which situations and which relievers have been getting warm. I mean, Eli Morgan had warmed up like 3 times yesterday, so he was getting in that game at some point. And just what they value, you know, Terry Francona used to say, if you warm up and don't get in, that's still something. We have to
Right.
consider that
Sure.
when thinking about whether you're available the next day. So I don't know. And also, like, which reliever do you prefer in extra innings with a runner on second base? Which do you prefer in a jam? Like, there's a lot to sort through here. We could talk about the beautifully timed squeeze play.
Oh, let's get to that right now because, you know, first day of the season, I was already ornery because I didn't like that Austin Hedges was playing on opening day and Bo Naylor was not. I didn't like that Hedges played 2 games. I know you and I were talking off air and you said, well, you know, he doesn't want to overdo him early in the season. I'm like, the guy's whatever, 22. What is he, 23? I can't remember how old he is, but he's young. I mean, I want to see the guy play. I want to see, like, he's supposed to be one of my best players. I want him to play every day. And I would at least put him at DH one of those 2 games, although credit to David Fry, who had a really great 2 games that he played. But I, you know, all right, I got to calm down on the lineup. I got to give it some time. And he's a rookie manager. No matter how I don't care how long he played in the big leagues or was involved in Major League Baseball. There's things he's got to learn, bullpen usage. Those things he's got to grow into. But to me, and again, I'm not saying he's going to be a bad manager or anything like that. I don't want to overreact that way. But that decision with first and third, nobody out, to try to do a suicide squeeze or a safety squeeze, whatever it was, with nobody out, I mean, if you can't trust a hitter to get a hit or at least hit a fly ball in that spot, then he shouldn't be up. What did he say after the game, Zach? Because at first I just assumed Arias had done it on his own. I'm like, what is he thinking? And then when I didn't see it till this morning that Vogt admitted that was his decision, I thought that was an all-time stupid decision there.
Here's the thing. A good manager is going to take blame no matter what.
Fair
now,
point.
he did.
Yeah.
I have no reason to think Arias was doing that on his own.
Yeah.
Do you know how many sacrifice bunts Arias has in his career?
0.
1.
Okay.
But it came on September 28th, 2022 in his 9th game in the majors. So It's been a while. And this is not hindsight because I said this out loud in the press box at the time. My issue with it was you had Stephen Kwan on deck. So no matter what Gabriel Arias did in that situation, if he grounds into a double play, you score a run.
Right.
If he strikes out, you still have a runner on third with less than 2 outs and your best contact hitter at the plate.
Yes.
Who's fast, so he can break up a double play too. I like my odds of getting that run home with Stephen Kwan. So if I'm managing this, just let Arias do whatever he needs to do. And if that means he's out and you don't get the run home, at least there's no way for him to wreck the inning completely where you don't score the run or you don't set the table for your best hitters.
Right.
So it didn't make sense. I felt bad for Bo Naylor because he sort of got caught in a really tough spot. Because you also, if Arias squared around, like, he didn't pull it back. He tried to bunt it. So if you're the runner, you have to assume they're going to make contact or else you're going to be thrown out of the plate.
Yeah, I didn't really blame Bo Naylor. First of all, how many times even including the minor leagues, do you think Bo Naylor's been in a situation where he's at third base and there's a suicide squeeze coming? Like, these days in baseball, you don't see it very often, and guys are not used to it, especially a young player. He's a catcher, so it's not, he's not going to be the best base runner in general. I just thought it was a really tough spot, and maybe Vogt was just taking the blame for his player, which would be a good thing to do. The Heat, but anyway, it was bad. It didn't work out, but overall, way more positive this weekend than negative with taking 3 out of 4.
And you have a rookie manager, a rookie bench coach, and a lot of first, second year players. These guys the coaches don't know the players don't know the coaches yet. I mean, there's going to be a lot of trial and error. That won't be the first thing we see where we scratch our head and it winds up backfiring.
Do you think your guess for this Mariners series, does Bo Naylor at least play 2 out of 3 in this series?
Yeah, and so a couple things. One, spring training, you play back to back, maybe by the end 3 in a row, but it's all planned in advance. You know on Sunday that you're playing Thursday, Friday that week. And you know that on Wednesday, you don't even need to show up to the ballpark. You can go sit by the pool. It's different during the season. And so they have 8 straight out of the chute before they get an off day. He wanted to he didn't, Josh Naylor got the 3rd game of the season off.
Right.
That wasn't because he was tired, but he knew in those 8 games, that was the best day to give Josh Naylor a day off. So it's going to be similar. I mean, I think, I don't think it's going to be a 50-50 split in July.
Right.
I don't even think it'll be a 50-50 split in April, but I think it was just, if you're going to sit Bo Naylor, sit him against a lefty. And I would think Bo Naylor catches 2 of the 3, probably the first 2 of this series, and then hedges the day game. And then you go to Minnesota, you have a game and then a day off. So I think you'll see a lot more Bo this week.
I think it's 3 righties. Seattle's 3 righties, right? Hancock's a righty.
Yep.
Castillo's a righty, and Kirby. Yeah. So they got all righties. Looking ahead to this series, I'm excited about this series because it's a real challenge. Like, the offense got off to a great start, but the A's have no pitching. I mean, they don't know who's the best pitcher on that roster. Alex Wood,
reliever Mason Miller, who throws 101 but has no idea where it's going.
Sure. The fact that we can't even come up with an easy answer just tells you. But this Mariners pitching is no joke. Like, Hancock's their 6th starter. Brian Wu gets hurt, and so now he's starting this game. He's a good pitcher. And then the pitching matchup tomorrow, Bieber against Castillo. Now, Castillo didn't have a good start, but that's, on paper, a great matchup. We know how good Castillo is. And then Allen against Kirby. Kirby's one of these pitchers who, unless you're a West Coast American League fan, maybe you don't know that much about him, but he's one of the best young pitchers in baseball. I mean, he's been fantastic in his 2 years in the big league. So this is quite a challenge early in the season for the Guardians. But I'm glad, because after they got the warm up against the bad team, now let's see him against a team that, I don't know what the Mariners are going to be. I think they're a borderline playoff team probably for the wild card, but we know their pitching is excellent. As you said, might be the best in baseball. So love this test coming after the A's. What do you think?
I fall for them every year. Every year I think I have Mariners Braves, and one of these years it's going to be right. Maybe it's their starting pitching is elite. Their bullpen is really good.
Yep.
You're going to have close games, low scoring games, and it's imperative that you get a good start from Tristan McKenzie and that you get a good start from Logan Allen. I think he made 2 mistakes to JD Davis the other day. He was fine, but they need those rookies to grow, to learn from their mistakes. Well, they're not rookies anymore. 2nd-year guys. Bibby's got to flush that start and pitch a lot better on Thursday in Minnesota. So I'm excited to see Tristan McKenzie. We really got robbed last year. He totaled 16 innings. And again, we don't know what the offense is going to be. I think in time it could be all right. Add Manzardo, add DeLauder, learn who of all these young kids deserves to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And while they sort all that out, they need the starting pitching to be their backbone, right? Yeah. So you need Bieber and McKenzie to look like they did 2 years ago.
And be healthy. I mean, that's one of the biggest keys, because neither one of those guys was healthy. I mean, what did McKenzie make? 3 starts last year? 4? I don't remember, but it wasn't
4, but 16 innings. So.
Right. Yeah, he barely pitched. And he's a guy, I don't know him personally. You obviously do. He seems like as likable a player as there is. I mean, he seems like an easy guy to root for, no? Is he that nice?
Yeah, he's very personable and down to earth, and he has that good mix of personality, but also you can see there's that competitive fire when he gets on the mound.
And you talk about the Mariners pitching before. You mentioned their bullpen. Their closer, Andres Munoz, that guy, you talk about a hard thrower, Mason Miller. He throws hard too. Munoz was like their setup guy for most of the year last year because they had Sewald as their closer, and then they traded Sewald to was it Arizona? I think traded to Arizona, and Munoz can pitch. They got a lot of good arms. You're right in that pen.
Well, you know who their bullpen coach was last year?
Oh yeah, it was Stephen Vogt, so he knows
There
him.
you go.
Yeah, that's true.
Another homecoming. He lives an hour from their ballpark.
Yeah, folks, if you want his address, Zach. You know, the Mariners lineup, though, you got Julio Rodriguez, who's one of the best players in baseball. But, and J.P. Crawford kind of put it together at age 28 or whatever it was last year. But the rest of their lineup, I mean, that's the Mariners in a way are, they're better on paper, but they're similar to the Guardians, where their strength is their pitching, and they don't have as many holes as the Guardians do in the lineup. But their lineup, is a lot of average players outside of Julio.
They try to do it the opposite way of the Guardians, where last year they had Eugenio Suarez and Teoscar Hernandez striking out 220 times, and Cal Raleigh, and it was boom or bust, right?
Kelnick.
Yeah, and that didn't quite work either. And we don't have enough time left in this show to talk about payroll and ownership and not spending money.
Yeah.
And everything I'm about to say, of course, the Guardians fit in this too. But the Mariners were a team where it was really disappointing. I thought they made a couple all right trades to get some different types of hitters in their lineup. But if they would have spent some money and signed a free agent or two, I mean, you'd be talking about them as a legitimate World Series contender, and they didn't do that. And they blamed it on the TV stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. If they had added, and I know he didn't have a great year last year, but if they had signed Matt Chapman, if they had signed Cody Bellinger, frankly, if they had even J.D. Martinez to a lesser degree, but you could, because the bottom of their lineup is kind of weak. I mean, they have some interesting guys. Cal Raleigh is a good hitter for a catcher, but he's a big strikeout guy, but he's got good power for a catcher. And the thing with, they brought Mitch Haniger back, but who's a good player. But the problem with him is he's always hurt. So, if he can stay healthy, he'll probably be a good addition to them. But, I mean, I was surprised because they've been a very aggressive team in recent years, trades, and they've spent money. And obviously their payroll is higher than the Guardians. But not, they didn't really do that this offseason.
And in their division, you have the two teams who won the last two World Series.
Right.
There's a lot more competition there than the AL Central, where the Guardians are just trying to race the Tigers and Twins to 85 wins.
Right. You taking anything out of the Tigers 3-0 start?
Yeah. The White Sox are just as bad as the A's. I mean, it's really bad. That rotation is horrendous.
Yeah.
What a surprise. Eloy Jimenez is hurt again.
I mean, that's the least. Well, the only thing less shocking than that is going to be when Byron Buxton goes down.
Yeah. So the Tigers are interesting.
Yeah.
I think they're also hoping some young guys take that next step, but I don't know. I'll be curious. I mean, the Guardians play the Twins this week.
Right.
That'll be worth noting and maybe drawing some conclusions from. But we need to see these three teams beat up on each other to really learn who has staying power, I think.
Yeah, the Tigers swept the White Sox. The Tigers, the Twins took 2 out of 3 from the Royals to start the season. So there you go. Although the Royals got the last game of that series. Although the Royals could have easily won that second game. Seth Lugo had pitched a great game for them, and then the bullpen just imploded. I am a little concerned about the Royals. I give them credit. They spent some money this offseason, and they made some nice additions, including Seth Lugo, but they didn't – I don't love their bullpen, and they don't really have a closer. I know it's probably going to be Will Smith, but he got just destroyed. And I'm not just saying it because he was seemed like he was on the decline last year. And I don't know. Anyway, they're not our problem, but
yeah, they could be a pest.
Yeah.
Later on, just because they have more veterans now, but they don't have young help coming up from the minors.
No,
they lost 106 games. I mean, maybe they improved by 15,
Yeah, I could see them being a 70-win team, even a 75-win team, maybe. I mean, I think
Yeah.
they'll be much improved. They're competitive. The White Sox are non-competitive, whereas the Royals are not good, but they're not competitive. I mean, they are competitive. I think, or at least that's my expectation for what they're going to be this year. All right, Zach. So we'll be back. So next week, we're not sure yet. We'll let you know during the week when our show is going to be next week, because 1 week from today, the eclipse is going to be happening. Opening day is normally at 4 when they do opening day. It's been a 4 o'clock game. It's going to be, what, 5 o'clock? It's 5 o'clock, right?
5 o'clock. So you got batting practice early. You've got
Yeah.
gates opening early. You've got,
So,
I think I'm going to have to sleep downtown a week in advance because the whole world is coming to
oh,
Cleveland.
my God. Well, you got the women's Final Four. You've got the eclipse, and you got opening day. It's just going to be bonkers downtown. So we will not be on live at 3. I can tell you that next Monday. We may do maybe Monday night, maybe live on Tuesday. We'll let you know. But what's your final thought as we head to the rest of this road trip, or whatever you got here to wrap things up?
Yeah, boy, imagine if they would have stolen that one on Sunday, left there with a 4-game sweep. But I do think, just looking at this road trip, if we would have gone into this saying what would have been a successful road trip, 5-5. I mean, 6-4, I think would have been great. Well, you're 3-1. You're halfway there. So if they can go take care of business and maybe split these 2 series against 2 good teams,
Yeah,
I think it's a really successful road trip. Then you come home, you get the White Sox, and you go from there. So, no opinions should be changed after 4 games. But I thought, if they don't have that snafu in the 9th inning, we might be sitting here talking about a 4-game sweep and everyone feeling a lot better than they did a week ago.
we'll see. You're 100% right. We'll see how it goes the next 6 games. But there was no buzz heading into the season for the casual baseball fan. And I think the casual baseball fan is a little excited that the team got off to this good start. Now, can it continue? If the Guardians can go at least 3-3, and I'll say if they could really go 4-2 and come home 7-3 for the home opener, there will be we know there's always a buzz on opening day, but people will be a lot more excited. You win 70% of your games in the first week, especially if they can win a couple of series in Seattle and Minnesota, which is not easy. That would be big. Thanks to everybody for watching and listening. I screwed up the producer portion of the show. I never took a break. I was supposed to take 2 breaks. I never did. I never hit the show open.
There's too much to cover.
No, it was too much to get to. And now we're out of time. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening. We'll talk to you next time. For Zach, I'm Adam the Bull. We'll see you next week on the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show. See you, everybody.